Hello, this is lecture 3. It is a continuation in the English grammar fourth year students, College of Education, Department of English. It is a continuation for the subject semantic roles. We talked about the topical roles of the subject, and we said that the subject is typically agentive. Now, it is an instrumental subject having an instrumental semantic role. Now, when the subject expresses inanimate cause of an event or action, or it is like the instrument by which the action has been done. For example, the avalanche destroyed several houses. So the avalanche is like the instrument by which several houses have been destroyed. The subject can also have an affected semantic role. In addition to the typical agentive and the instrumental roles, there is the affected semantic role. It happens when intransitive verb or extensive verb occur. So, for example, Jack fell down. Now here, the action of falling down affects Jack, which is the subject. Now, the subject here is affected by that action, and that's why we say affected subject. Or the pencil was lying on the table. So what is it that is lying on the table? It is the subject, which is the pencil. The pencil. Again, the pencil here is the affected subject. Here there is a clause relation between adjectives or intransitive verbs and transitive verbs with causative meaning. So the relationship can be subject, which is affective, and the verb. For example, the door opened. The door opened. Here the subject is affected, while in this sentence, which is subject, whose role is agentive, with intransitive verb, for example, John or the key opened the door. Now here the door is affected. Here the door is affected, which is object, and the object is affected. Now John is the subject, which is John or the key, which is the agentive. John or the key, which is the agentive. John, agentive, the key instrumental. Opened, the intransitive verb, and the door, the object, which is affected. Then the subject affected with the verb and complement, the copular verb and the complement. Now the subject, the road, the subject, the affected subject, became, which is the copular verb or linking verb, became narrower, the complement. Now here it has a relationship with subject, agentive, the role of the subject here is agentive, and verb with affected object. They narrowed the road. Now here the road became an affected object. Then the verb, the adjective here, narrower, became a verb which is narrowed. The third relationship is that the subject, agentive, and the verb the subject, agentive, and the verb. For example, my dog was walking. Now, my dog is the subject, which is agentive, and walking was walking is the verb. Here, the relationship is with subject, agentive, verb, and object affected as well. I was walking my dog. I was walking which means I was taking my dog on a walk. Now, the subject can have recipient semantic role. In addition to those roles, it can have recipient semantic role with verbs like have, possess, benefit from, or with perceptual verbs like hear and see. For example, the boy has a car. Now here, the one who possesses the car is the boy, which is the subject, which is recipient. The semantic role here is the of the subject is the recipient. Or I hear you. I hear you, or he hears again. But with listen and watch or look at, the semantic role of the subject is agentive. Why? Because there is an action, not verbs of perception or verbs of possession. Listen, watch, or look. Here, these three verbs can have the implication of action. I am listening, I am watching, I'm looking at. So here the subject is agentive. Verbs like taste, smell, and have can have both recipient and agentive subject. Can have both semantic roles of the subject, either recipient when they denote the meaning of perception. Then it is recipient. The subject is recipient. When they denote the meaning of action, then the subject is going to be agentive. For example, he tasted the soup. Now here, tasted the soup. It is not an action. It is a matter of perception. Or when we say I am tasting, now I am in the process of tasting. Now here it is the subject is an agentive. Why? Because the subject is in a process of tasting. Now 7.11, the verbs of mental states require a recipient subject. The verbs of mental state require a recipient subject. What does this mean? This means that when we have verbs dealing with mental activities, then the subject must be recipient. That's it. He thought so and so. I liked so and so. I love you. I love him. They liked me. I don't like, and so on and so forth. The music gives me a pleasure. The subject receives the pleasure. When we say I like the music very much, so I like, so the music gives me the pleasure. So I receive the pleasure of the music. Yes. Normally, the recipient subject requires a stative verb which has no passive voice, which means there is no ing form to this stative. So all stative verbs are concerned with the recipient subject. Now, other semantic roles for the subject: locative, temporal, and eventive. Locative, which deals with the location of the subject; temporal, which deals with the time of the subject; and eventive, the event. Now let's take example for each. For example, the bus holds, this is holds, it should be holds, there's missing D, 40 people. Now the bus here, the subject or the location, and the semantic role of this subject is location. So 40 people can sit in the bus. In this case, there is no passive. In this case, there is no passive. Now, the subject can have a temporal semantic role if it refers to time, of course. Tomorrow is my birthday. Now is the meeting. Now here, the subject's role is temporal, of time related. In this case, of course, the subject can be replaced with empty it. When we have such a semantic role which is temporal, now the subject can be replaced with the empty it. For example, it's my birthday tomorrow. It's my birthday tomorrow. And so tomorrow belongs to the empty it. Now, what is it? Empty it. What does it mean? The subject here, the subject may lack the semantic meaning when it is an empty it. There's no semantic role for the empty it, and that's why it is called empty, which happens with the climatic suppressions. It is always with the climatic suppression. It is raining, it is noisy, it is cold, it is hot, and so on and so forth. As for the locative and the affected object, the object is either locative or affected, not affected, affected. Pay attention to this, affected or affected. In addition to the affected role of the direct object, which is the typical role, it can have a locative semantic role. For example, the horse jumped the fence, which means over the fence. Now here the fence is the object, but what semantic role does it have? The semantic role of the fence is the location, is the locative semantic role, just like the subject. However, it occurs in the object position, and that's why we call it locative object. The direct object can have a cognate semantic role when it repeats the meaning of the verb, or it echoes the meaning of the verb. For example, he sings a song. He sings a song. He slept asleep. نام نوما أو غنى أغنية. We call it in Arabic المفعول به المطلق. So the affected object can be a verbal noun preceded by verb like do, make, have, take, and give. This is called affected, not affected. Affected object. For example, he made several attempts. It is verbal noun. Why? Because it follows the verbs do, make, have, taken. The prisoner made no command, not on command, no command. This is a spelling mistake. It is here no command. Yes. And the cognate object is a type of affected object. The cognate object, which is he sings a song, is a kind of affected object. All the indirect objects are recipient. That's it. All the indirect objects are recipient. Their semantic roles are recipient. But there is one exception, which is the indirect object can be affected in verbs like give, owe, or pay. Here, the object is affected. For example, I paid her a visit, which means I visited her. Here, a visit is an affected object. Or the object is affected if it occurs by virtue of the verb only. That is to say, the object does not exist if the action is not done. This is a very important note. For example, I'm writing a letter. So where is the object? It resulted from the action of writing, the verb write. That's all for this lecture. You may find the exercises in the workbook. Please do study them hard. Try to solve all the exercises in the workbook, and if there is any question, you refer to me online on module or the Telegram group. Thank you very much. Wait for me for the next lecture, the continuation of the simple sentence.